Not on screen. I see that he's on, but he's not on screen. You want to put him on screen? There we go. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. For those of you joining us, I would like to welcome you to the special school board meeting to request to advertise trim notice at the Joe N. Idolette Jr. TEC. Today is Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The time is 11:01. I ask that out of respect to everyone, please silence all electronic devices. Also, if you have any material with you that you wish to share with a board member, please give that to our executive assistant, Mrs. Moray, over here. At this time, I'd like to ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I was just let you know that there seems to be a little lag. So as we were sitting, Dr. Posca was just standing.
Oh, okay.
So
That's
you
fine.
want to just pay attention as we talk. There may be, a time before he actually hears us.
Okay. All right, we are to the adoption of the orders of the day. Are there any consent agenda items or any other items members wish to bring or add for discussion? Okay, seeing none, then I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the adoption of the orders of the day.
So make a motion.
Okay, Dr. Jones, and was that Ms. Rosario?
Sure.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is that a 5-0 vote?
Yes.
Okay. All right. At this time, it's time for citizen input. Do we have any speakers today?
Madam Chair, we had no one submit any forms, and everyone in the audience is staff.
Okay, then I am not going to read this very long.
I mean, staff
thing that I
can
have to read.
address the board, so I
I don't think I need to read the citizen input policy statement then. Okay, so we are to our action agenda. Today we are here because of an amended approval to advertise the 2024-2025 proposed tentative budget and millage rates for the express purpose of advertising the budget in accordance with the truth and millage requirements. The purpose of this item is to authorize the superintendent to take the necessary steps, including making final adjustments to proposed revenues, expenditure projections, fund balances, and millage rates based on action to be taken by the Indian River County Property Appraiser and Florida Department of Education. On July 1st, 2024, the Indian River County Property Appraiser certified to the Florida Department of Revenue the taxable assessed valuation for the school purposes. In addition, pursuant to Florida Statute 1011.62, subsection 4A, 1.a, the Commissioner of Education will certify to each district school board the millage rates that, when applied to the percentage of the estimated state total taxable value for school purposes, will generate the prescribed aggregate required local effort for that year for all districts. This statutory action by these bodies will have the effect of changing the school district's budgetary estimates. This request for authorization is necessary in order to advertise the 2024-2025 proposed tentative budget and millage rates, along with the proposed capital projects to be funded from the capital outlay and debt service millage proceeds in preparation for the public hearing to be held on July 22nd, 2024 at 5:01 p.m. in the Teacher Education Center, TEC. A brief overview and description of the proposed tentative budget and millage rates will be presented by staff. At this time, the chair recognizes Dr. Moore to present item 3A.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm going to quickly turn it over to Mr. Green, but before I do, I just ask the board to remember where we were financially 4.5 years ago. And I've told the story many times that Mr. Fagan, our previous CFO, my first conversation with him is that for every dollar we receive from the state of Florida, we spend $1.38. And over the course of the last 4 years, there's been a significant amount of work, most of it behind the scenes, to right-size our budget. And we as a system are celebrated for our academic outcomes over the last 2 years, and we get a lot of acknowledgement and celebration for what we have done to drastically improve academic outcomes for kids. But I can tell the entire team, and in true Bruce Green fashion, the entire team is here, the green team as we call it. This is the biggest point of pride for me. The academic success is great, and it's our sole purpose, it's our work, but we can't do that with a stable budget. And the work that this team has done over the last 4.5 years to stabilize the systems and the structures in order to ensure that we can provide as many resources to our teams to improve the quality of instruction. Just so proud of that work. And the fact that I come here on a Saturday to pick up one piece of paper that I may have forgotten, and there's many cars in the parking lot, and that's just not the last 3 Saturdays and Sundays, it's pretty much any Saturday. So the team that stands before you, board, is beyond committed in doing this work, understand their role, that they're gonna make it happen for our teachers, for our principals, for our students, in terms of maximizing the dollars that we have. So, Mr. Green, with that, the floor is yours.
Or through the chair, board members, today is the first in a series of 3 statutorily required meetings that we will must conduct in order to adopt your 24-25 school budget. This first meeting is to garner approval from the board for the superintendent to update our TRIM, truth and millage advertisements, when the second calculation is released on or about July 19th, to be published in the newspaper to notify the taxpayers of our budget, our millages, and our tax rates, and give them the opportunity to know when we're going to have public hearings on that budget. The second and third meetings will be public hearings on, the first one will be on the tentative budget, and the final on September 9th will be on your final budget. So this work actually began back in January, really, with the SAM model and working all the way through, but really the book that you had delivered to you on Friday, which the team behind me gets the credit for that, that book is based off of millage rates provided in your first calculation, or appropriations, which came out from the legislation in May, establishing your proposed millage rates and what each school district was required to tax in order to fund the school district. July 1st, the tax collector then certified the school taxable assessed value. How much property value is taxable in Indian River County, and how does that apply to the school system? When you apply the millage rates to the taxable assessed values, you garner the revenue that we get to operate the budget. However, the tax collector must send that certified roll to the Department of Revenue. They then certify it and send it to the Department of Education. They then use it to run the second calculation. By statute, they must deliver that second calculation to us by July 19th. We do not have that yet. So the advertisements that you have before you are based on your appropriated millage rates and your July 1st certified tax roll. Whatever the second calculation adjustments are, today, the superintendent is asking for your authority to adjust those millage rates accordingly per statute, adjust these 3 advertisements, and to place them into the TC Palm newspaper, your greatest circulation, in a physical hard copy on July 26th. After they are posted in the newspaper on July 26th, you will then be holding your first tentative budget public hearing on July 29th in this building at 5:01 p.m., within the 2 to 5 statutorily required days after posting the ads. You have 3 ads before you today. One of them is the budget summary, and that budget summary is also in your general fund budget in your book. That is one of the key documents that shows the overall 7 funds, from general, capital, debt, federal, food service, enterprise, all of your 7 funds, the federal, state, and local revenue generated from those millages, and the proposed expenditures in the budget. That budget summary in some years is required to have at the top, and I know Mr. Fagan mentioned last year it was hidden. This year we've exposed it. There's a special calculation on that budget summary that takes only your general and federal funds, only, nothing else. And if the net of your general and federal funds increased this year over last year, you're required to post that. So if you look at the top of the budget summary, you'll see this proposed budget is 1.9% increase over last year. So that statement is required through the trim office, and we have posted that. And it's specific to only your general and federal funds. The second advertisement that you'll be placing in the newspaper is your school capital outlay tax. This used to be called your 2 mil money, as you would leverage a maximum of 2 mils to build buildings, maintain the buildings, pay for the employees that drive the buses and maintain the buildings that you bought, computers and other equipment that you can use with capital dollars. As we've discussed in previous workshop and in board briefings, last year, which is now 1.5 mil, reduced through legislation several years back to 1.5 mil is the maximum levy for capital. This is also beginning to fund the charter schools' pro rata share of their capital funds. So last year we funded 20% of their share, this year 40%, 60, 80, 100 over a 5-year period, until out of the 1.5 mil, it will also fund 100% of the charter schools' pro rata share of their capital needs. That capital ad lists the projects that we anticipate implementing with the 1.5 mil, the dollars generated, the $47 million that is generated from that tax levy. And your third ad is a notice of proposed property tax increase. When your total, if you take all the millages, 5.815, you look at the end of your book on the budget summary, times the total taxable assessed value, 32.5 billion, if that number is higher this year than it was last year, then you must notice a proposed tax increase. The millage rates may reduce, but the TAV may go up, or the TAV may go down, but the millage rates go up. So what you have before you is a request for approval to allow the superintendent to modify these 3 draft ads when we get the second calculation on the 19th, and to place them in the newspaper on July 26th in preparation for the July 29th tentative budget public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any discussion?
I do. I have
Ms. Rosario?
Yes, thank you. So right now, we are only on A. We're not on B, correct?
Correct, 3A.
Okay. What is the plan moving forward? Because I understand that this is just the tentative budget. The board has not been involved in any of this up until right now. I mean, last week it was made public. We received our notice, I think, on Thursday that it was available in our mailbox, you know, the book, and then sent to us electronically on Friday. I hope I have my dates right. And so the board has just had a few days to kind of go over hundreds and hundreds of pages here. What is the plan between now and the final approval that is going to actually pull the board into discussion, because it is our legal responsibility to not just receive a budget that you all provide for us, but it is for us to be a part of that process. We have not been a part of that process. Every year since I've been here, it has become less and less where it is the board's budget and more the superintendent's budget. And I love your team, I love you, I love the department. Everybody has done an amazing job on that. That is not the issue that I am bringing forward. It is the issue of involving board members in on this process. So I think there is time. I think we can now begin a series of budget workshops since we have the tentative. I would like to see us have some special workshops set up between now and the final, so that if there is anything that the board collective, individual meetings cannot be appropriate for a board member to say, I'd like this changed, or I'd like that changed. These changes, if there is any, or even questions that we have at this point, because it is now a public document, has to be done in an open meeting. So again, I'll come back to my question. What is the plan between now and the final approval that you would bring the board in, or the superintendent, on workshops where we can be a part of the process before it's finally approved?
Yep, I'll let Dr. Moore fill in as well after, but you are correct that this begins the process, because now on July 19th, when we get that second calculation, we'll actually know the numbers we have to deal with. Up until this point, we're speculating. It's a draft and it's numbers. I went back and watched Mr. Fagan last year, and the proposed increase was going to be 17%, and after the numbers came out, it went down to 6%. So based on that number, we'll actually know what the budget really will be. From that process forward, I know we have a workshop on the 22nd that's on budget and TAN. We would have opportunities. But from now until the September 9th, when you adopt a final budget, that is the opportunity to make, it's a tentative, to have any discussions, get input, and make those changes. And where I think the item today, the second item that we're having, is a discussion around extended day. So we have a tentative budget published that after those conversations and decisions made, we'll go back and make adjustments within the budget of the numbers that we now will know exist, and we'll make those adjustments to the budget prior to September 9th.
Well, we have a month, Dr. Moore,
Yeah, no, I think.
and I don't think one meeting is enough.
I think this is a standing item between now and September 9th on our workshops to engage the conversation, as staff will be ready to open schools, which is a separate piece of work. The board itself has plenty of time during workshops to have those conversations regarding the creation of the budget. As much time is needed. The intent is to ensure we are funding the board's strategic plan and engaging in those dialogues. So the intent, to directly respond to the question, is at our next workshop, which is a week from
Today? Yesterday.
yesterday. Then again in September. I think those two meetings at July and August would be two workshops to conduct in those meetings. If at the end of the next workshop, which is next week, you would want more time, then we could engage in that conversation then. But I think those two opportunities provide lengthy time to have conversations regarding the creation of the district's budget.
No, I think you misunderstood. I don't mean adding this to our current workshops. I mean creating a budget workshop, a workshop where we are specifically only talking about the budget from cover to cover.
And if that's the will of the board, that's another theory of action. I can pull the board to determine if that's what they want.
We're here now. There's no poll,
Well,
we're here now.
It's very challenging to get calendars together with this group. My recommendation is to see if those specific times that I've identified are sufficient to have those conversations. In the past, I think they've been very, very fruitful and allow us to create that particular budget. I would think we would engage in that conversation next week. And if the board itself doesn't feel it's enough time, then we would then at that point schedule additional meetings so the board has a level of satisfaction regarding the conversations.
Yeah, disappointed that we have not been brought into this conversation before today. I've been talking about it, obviously, with you and Mr. Green for a long time, and I would be shocked if the board as a whole would not support really having in-depth conversations about our budget, which is a priority and a responsibility for us, you know, to engage in those conversations, and not just a very, by the way, here it is, and what do you think? You know, I come back to that same question. I know Mr. Green asked me at the beginning of last week, you know, do I have any questions about the budget before I actually received it? And I can't ask any questions that I don't know, you know, I don't know what's in it. So I could not have that discussion last week. And moving forward, sure, we can have one-on-one, but it doesn't make a difference unless the entire board is together to make these decisions. So I put it out to the board members, Madam Chair, through you and running this meeting. I'd like to see where the board stands on having budget workshops. That would be sufficient enough for all of us to be a part of the process.
So traditionally, as he stated, we don't get the actual figures from the state board until a certain date. And I think the original meeting for us was supposed to be the 22nd. It got moved to the 29th because of that reason. The state wasn't going to issue the numbers to our team until then. So we can't start budget discussions until we get the actual numbers. So I think they're actually correct in the fact that we are starting now, because they're giving us a tentative budget. They don't even have the actual numbers yet. So, you know, I love playing the game of what if, but I'd rather play the game of what we have. And we won't know those numbers until after the next meeting, correct?
And through the chair, just in looking and speaking to other superintendents, this is probably the first in the state, and I don't think I'm being egregious in saying that, where we're posting the trim notice, which puts out that budget, as Mr. Green said, puts it out before the actual final numbers come in with the shift and the modification. And this was a conversation last year. Mr. Fagan's thinking is, let me do it as early as humanly possible to engage in that specific conversation. So you're right, Madam Chair, the numbers haven't been finalized until Friday. This is the creation of the budget. It is not an easy task because you have such a tight timeline. And the budget conversation isn't a conversation that you have 6 or 7 weeks before the budget. It is an ongoing conversation over the course of the year when you're looking at your strategic plan, you're funding the priorities within that strategic plan, and you're making difficult decisions as to, you know, what we can and can't fund based on enrollment, based on the allocation provided by the state. So that's just additional information based on that conversation.
Okay, board members, Mr. McDonald?
I think it's a good idea. Starting from this point, which is when we have it, I think it's an excellent idea to at least set aside one workshop specifically to go over the topics. There's a lot here to go over, and a lot of people ask us and expect us to be very knowledgeable about this and have some input. So I think that we do need to have something specific for that.
So that's a good idea. What if, since we're already scheduled for September, I can clear that agenda and that becomes a sole board workshop on the budget? I think we can make that happen.
On September 9th?
Yeah, and it's already scheduled.
Well, we didn't hear from the other board members.
Oh, no, I know, just,
Okay,
you know,
he's
conversation.
reacting to his comment.
Yeah.
Dr. Jones?
Just in general, first of all, thank you to is this on for me?
It's on.
Thank you to Mr. Green and his department. I know summer is very, very busy for you. When we take a look at our budget, the one thing I really focus on is how our budget relates to the strategic plan. And on page 11 of 380 pages, you have that. And I'm always making sure the academic success has the most as far as the percentage. This is a lot of work, but when we get the information, it's our responsibility to review it, to check on it. Our superintendent, as the CO here of this district, charges Mr. Green and his team to do this, and I feel very comfortable with this. if we keep ahead of this, every meeting that I have with the superintendent, Mr. Green, and cabinet, budget is always at the top. We will always talk about, no matter where we are during the school year, and if they don't bring it up, I will bring it up. I've been very concerned the last few years, is our SAM, our model for student allocation, is that working for our principals? Is the zero-based budgeting working for our principals? And if they need more, what is the procedure? Because our focus obviously is academic achievement. You know, this takes a lot of study by a board member. I take this seriously. I want to make sure that we are spending the money where it needs to be spent. One thing that I will always say to our community is that we are accountable for every penny we spend, whether it's capital, whether it's operating, whether it's internal. It's our job to make sure, as the board, that that is working. I wouldn't mind another meeting, but I feel like we can't jump the gun until we absolutely know what we're going to receive. Even when we looked at some information earlier about, it looks like a 12% raise, but it's really just 7 because the categoricals go into the general fund. So those are the things that kind of keep creeping up on us, so we have to be on top of it. I wouldn't mind another meeting, but I feel like when we look at our budget summary, when we look at the entire budget that was brought to us, even the second time when we had to make some changes, that we will let our public know on what we are spending this money on and what the results are. An extra meeting, maybe I wouldn't be opposed to, but as far as, you know, going exactly line by line or taking a look at certain things where it needs to go, when we look at our strategic plan pie, I think we're doing the right thing for our students.
Okay, Dr. Posca?
I think he heard you.
Dr. Posca? His microphone's not on.
Dr. Pascal, 1 second. We gotta turn you on. Sounds like you're saying some very important things right now, sir, but we can't hear you.
We cannot hear you yet. We cannot hear you yet.
Is he ever muted? Oh.
Is it on his end? Is it his mic that's not turned on?
Maybe stand in front of the screen, Dorian, and see that stand in front of the camera. It was really good what you said. We were really confident in what you said, but we didn't hear a word of it.
Madam Chair, while they do that, may I make a comment?
Yeah.
I'd just like board members to take to think about this. Think about the timeline. What Dr. Moore is suggesting is a September 9th workshop. It is the same exact date in which the final budget should be approved, September 9th, on the same day. I think that is absolutely, I think that does not give the board time to provide feedback or input on the same day, even if there were changes to be made. Public hearing number 2, approval of the final budget. I mean, I know that we're not, well, yes, that's the same day as the resolution to adopt the final budget as well. There's no time, September.
Madam Chair,
He wants the workshop
August.
to be on the, it
August.
says September.
Are you talking about
You
the
said
August?
September 9th
I'm
for the
sorry.
workshop.
I meant August. I'm so future focused. I was referring to August. So we
August,
have,
okay.
yeah, so August, yes.
Okay, that makes things,
And then,
How we doing there with sound? Trying. Okay, Dr. Pasca, hold on. He's still working on your sound. One thing I would suggest, I'll speak while we're waiting on him. Every year, I schedule a meeting with, ahead with Mr. Fagan and sat down after going through the budget myself and indicating any questions I had, and I would make a list of which pages and which items I wanted to ask questions on. Then I would bring my whole book in, and Mr. Fagan and I would sit down for an hour, hour and a half, and go through every single item. And we did it on a day where his staff was in there, so if he had a specific question, he could call somebody in and get all my questions answered. And then if there was something I still wanted to bring up, I was able to bring it up at that last meeting that we had, the workshop. So I feel like every board member should be doing that, scheduling a meeting with Bruce Green and sitting down one-on-one with him on a day where his staff is there, where you can ask any specific question you want about the book, of anything, to get really a good understanding of what it is. Because if you haven't been trained in education finance, which is a whole course, I know I've taken it, you've taken it, Peggy, I'm sure Ms. Rosario's taken it. It's a pretty complicated financial bunch of buckets that can have rules. All the buckets have rules. So you may think it's really easy to move money from one place to another, but there are rules behind moving money. So it's really important to educate yourself, and the best way to do it is to sit with Bruce, I think, and ask all those questions that you have of why money can't be moved from here to here, or why we have that much money in a certain place. And there are reasons behind it. Sometimes it's the DOE that tells us what we can do. Sometimes it's in statute. Sometimes it's what we're doing with our SAM.
It's on.
Okay, are we good? Not at all, okay. Anyway, so I would just maybe have Bruce reach out to every board member and schedule a one-on-one meeting. That way, when we do have workshop, we're not going through the book line by line by line, because that could be a 24-hour meeting, because that is a very thick book. So I'd rather the meeting be very efficient, where we all had those one-on-one workshop or private workshops with him before that workshop in August. And then in August, we have all of our last questions that we have ready to go, and we can go through those all in front of everybody and discuss them together. Okay, Dr.
Madam
Pasco.
Chair, we're going to try to see if we hear Dr. Pasco.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we'll try this.
Dr. Moore, you gotta
Maybe
move
hold
back.
it back a little bit.
I think you have to move back, because
From
your
the
your
microphone.
mic is
Is
too
that any
close.
better?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. I could not hear or see anything during the first part of the meeting. I started streaming the YouTube video, so I was following along once I realized the meeting had started. But I think, given the discussion we're having, I would support a dedicated workshop where we can go over the budget as a team and discuss things. So I would support that sometime potentially in August. And, I think there was also mention that I guess there's zero-based budgeting in the schools. So I did have a question. Is our budget for the schools a zero-based budget? I guess that would be directed to Dr. Green.
So on our district department budgets, we went through a zero-based budgeting model this year. Our school budgets are determined through the staff allocation model, and those have set dollar amounts per elementary, middle, or high type that determine the staffing, which determines your salary budget, determines your custodial, your discretionary budgets. Those are all formula driven through the staff allocation model and adjusted each year as needed. The district departments do not get that prescripted amount. They go through a zero-based budgeting process. The schools have to have a certain amount of teachers per class size, so it turns into more of a formula driven through that staff allocation model.
Okay, just to clarify,
Yes.
something I heard earlier. Thank you for that clarification. But yeah, I'll reiterate, I would support a dedicated meeting to discuss the budget, hopefully in August. Sorry about the feedback.
It's me.
But beyond that, I think there's probably some places we can improve. And, last year, for instance, the mental health counseling department was brought up. Obviously, I'm in the medical field. I'm familiar with how practice functions. And it was pretty clear that we had a lot of staff doing very little work in that department, which was really not a good use of resources. So, things of that nature, I would like to take a closer look at and have this conversation as a group with the other board members.
Okay.
So Madam Chair.
Yes.
A recommendation, just in listening to all of the board members. We used August as a standalone workshop for the budget. In the meantime, I will have Dorian work with the board members to identify a possible date, if needed, after the August meeting. And the board can assess its level of comfort after that standalone budget workshop in August to determine that this standby date, if we need to continue the conversation, we can schedule. So that allows us to have a 4-hour conversation around the budget and have a day back up after that August meeting, just in case we need it.
Okay, will that satisfy everybody? So in other words, a standalone budget workshop on our August date that we already have, and then a possible date that we all can kind of have as a tentative for another meeting, if needed. Okay. All right, so I'm going to call for a motion.
I'm sorry, for another meeting or another
For another
workshop?
workshop. For the
Workshop.
For another workshop.
Yep.
So you're going to send us 2 dates, one for the August budget workshop.
The August date, which is already scheduled workshop, will solely be on the budget.
August 26th.
Yes, we have that date already scheduled.
Okay. So that is, why are we waiting so long? That's only just a couple of weeks.
Well, you keep in mind, we're also having a conversation next week, so that conversation will be the 2nd, and then a tentative date for the 3rd. Because it is an item for the upcoming workshop as well.
Why not have one before the 26th? And then use the 26th as your 2nd, in case you needed that, in case we needed another option.
And that would be a
Because
conversation.
it's just so tight. It's so close to September 9th. Do a budget workshop before the 26th, mid-year, mid-month, somewhere. And use the 26th as the tentative 2nd,
Dr. Jones?
or something like that.
All right, so right now we have our meeting scheduled in July for 6 days from today. And you're saying July 22nd, superintendent's workshop will be budget, correct? So
Not
26th.
exclusively, but yes.
22nd is
There'll
our
be
next
initial
meeting.
discussion.
You said 22nd,
Yes, ma'am.
August 22nd?
I'm
No,
talking about July
July
22nd.
22nd.
If I could,
Okay.
July 22nd, Dr. Moore, our workshop will be basically on the budget.
No.
No.
Okay, so when is our next budget meeting?
July 22nd, we will have an agenda item where we'll begin that conversation
Okay.
and kind of have board members task us out with some priorities. Come back in August. I don't have that date in front of me.
Okay.
22nd?
Sixth.
6th.
26 is the
26th.
business,
26th.
yeah.
That will be the report back on all of the homework that was assigned to me, I guess, and Mr. Green, which would be a sole item on that agenda, which would be the budget.
Okay.
Then I would find between September 9th and August 26th, an additional date, if needed,
If
that would be
needed.
on standby.
Well, like I said, that standalone budget, I think August 26th is too late. I just think that's too late. I think that might be a better second opportunity, because it still gives you, the whole idea of the second meeting would be to still give time, if any. I mean, we might not have any requests for changes or additions or anything like that, but it still gives you time, it gives the team time to work on whatever needs to be worked on, whereas if the standalone were before the 26th, that also gives time for saying, okay, you know what, we still need some time on the 26th.
No, I appreciate that. My expectation is when we convene in 6 days from now, we are collecting priorities and then reestablishing or defining the budget around what those budgets are. I think you're right. I think each board member has been crystal clear in their priorities and things that they want to see. So there'll probably be minor changes and then clarity. But one change is significant work. So getting those priorities that result in change will take 4 weeks to do. Because just when I was challenged to look at the extended day budget, and thank you, board members, for that push, that required one number changes. It's just not on that summary page. It's every expenditure throughout. It's changing page number. It's rewriting the entire book. So if I can get if you all can have the public conversation regarding where we are, ask questions as you rightfully should do, that gives me enough time to charge staff with where we are in the school year to get everything done and where they can still be husbands and wives and mothers and fathers. And then we come back in August. That's just a report back on the shifts or modifications to the budget. So I understand that the sooner the better. I think the sooner is in 6 days. And then we're tasked out, and we'll give the weekly updates as we always do. And then we'll get everything posted in August 26th and determine if we are in a good place or not. I think we will be.
I also think that gives us, as board members, that gives us 3 weeks to have conversations with Mr. Green alone, to get all the specifics that we question figured out so that when we come to that August workshop, we are prepared. I think putting the cart before the horse and having a meeting before that, I'm not going to have all the questions I want answered, and then we're going to go around again in August. It's almost like we'll do a bunch of stuff and then we'll have to undo it and redo it. I'd rather just have that conversation early in June than have our individual meetings in early August and then end of August. We also have the opening of schools. And I know all these people have other tasks to do with the opening of schools as well. So I really don't want to put an extra burden on everybody for that reason as well. But I highly suggest going through the budget line by line and then meeting with Bruce Green about your individual questions.
Well, the 19th, August 19th, gives you 5 weeks from August 22nd. That's more than 4 weeks. That gives us plenty of time to meet one-on-one with Mr. Green, using the 26th as a follow-up, if that is possible or if that is needed. And then that still gives 3 weeks until the final budget. Whereas if we meet for the first time on the 26th, that only gives 2 weeks for the district to make any changes or to revise or to fix or to do anything. That is not efficient for the board, for the staff. 2 weeks is not sufficient. 3 weeks, I think, is.
Well,
Better.
I
I'm
would like
just
to
saying.
actually
So,
ask.
so if we did the budget, just the budget workshop on August 16th, that's 5 weeks from when,
Now you're saying the 16th, not the 19th? You just said the 19th. I don't even know what
Sorry.
date it is because I don't have a calendar in
sorry, I
front of
got
me.
the September. Yes. August 19th, Monday, August 19th, gives 5 weeks from next Monday, which is the 22nd, where we should be getting the final budget, right? The final numbers. From the 22nd until the 19th, that's 5 weeks. That should give Bruce and his team enough time to work, enough time for the board members to meet one-on-one or ask any questions. If we meet on August 19th, then that could be just budget workshop only. That gives then the 26th as a buffer, and if we need or have any other questions. Other than that, from the 19th until September 9th, that's 3 weeks. I mean, if we are going
So
to
you're
put
just
staff.
asking to add a meeting. You're asking to add a budget workshop on August 19th?
Yeah.
And keep the August 26th as it is?
Exactly.
Okay.
Keep August 26th as it is and use August 26th, as Dr. Moore mentioned earlier, he said he would put on the calendar a second date, a second meeting in case we needed it. Well, that would be our 26th. I would rather give staff more time than push it all the way to the 26th, and then they only have 2 weeks. That's not fair to you all. But I think 5 weeks and 3 weeks, I think meets everyone in the middle, and I think that would make,
I don't have my calendars in front of me, so I can't guarantee
Yeah.
that I can be here that day, but.
but you could meet if you're not virtually.
Again, I might be traveling, I don't know, so I might not be able to meet virtually. And if I'm not here, then you need to run the meeting, so I'm not sure if you're available that day.
Could we review again just
Or
all
that
the
week,
dates?
or that week, or the week of the 19th.
Okay. I'm sorry?
I just want to start from the beginning. What dates and what the recommendation of Dr. Moore.
She's just saying to add August 19th as a budget workshop date. And if my schedule's clear, I'm fine with it. I just need to know if my schedule's clear.
What about Dr. Posca and
Yeah, Dr. Pasco, are
Evan.
you available on the 19th, do you
Mr.
know?
McDonald?
Can you ask that again?
Are you available on the 19th of August for a budget workshop?
The 19th of August for a workshop. A better date would be the 6th through the 11th of August. Those are available.
Yeah, I know I'm not
That's too
available
soon.
then,
That's,
and that's too soon.
that's when schools are starting to.
That's school, first
So
week of school.
just through the chair, the timeline that I laid out is more than sufficient for staff. It is not a reach for us to get everything done within the timeline that I said. The 19th is the second full week of school, so the time commitment and rearranging of additional meetings is not ideal given the time frame of where we are in the year. So in terms of what's best for staff is what I laid out, but if it's the board's decision to go in a different direction, then we will acquiesce.
Madam Chair, Dr. Moore, would you lay that out one more time just with the dates for everyone?
Okay, as best I can. July 22nd is a agenda item on our next workshop in which we will spend as much time as we need talking through budget priorities and answering questions and then following up as needed. On August 26th, which is the next workshop, that will be a sole board workshop where we can provide the feedback. The bulk of the work on that August 26th will be reporting out. The work would be done because it gives me an entire month as well as staff to refine, get clarity from board members in order to ensure what we are presenting on the 26th is a comprehensive product that would probably or may need minor revisions, and then define a date in which Dorian could staff or poll board members immediately following the August 26th if the board felt there is an additional time needed to be ready to approve the overall budget in September 9th.
So you're asking for a possible, instead of August 19th, you're asking for a possible meeting added between August 26th and September 9th because you're saying staff would be prepared.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's only 2 weeks.
It-
So it's just going to be a week? You're going to add another meeting a
It-
week before the final budget?
If needed. I don't think it would be needed, but if needed, yes.
That's crazy.
Madam Chair, I'm good with that outline. Just if we need the meeting, then we have it.
Can I just ask also, the August 26th meeting, that workshop was not intended to be a budget workshop. That was a regular scheduled superintendent workshop. date. And now what you're suggesting is that you would add to that workshop budget items so that we can continue the conversation on budget. But it is not a standalone budget workshop. It is only a slotted time, and it defeats the entire purpose of having a budget-specific workshop.
Through the chair, it's a superintendent's workshop, and the item that would be solely placed on that agenda would be budget. So it would be a budget workshop, because that workshop belongs to me. So it would be one item where it would say budget.
And you wouldn't have any other items to present to the board going into September,
We-
preparing for, closer, because then you wouldn't have any time to present to us anything else moving forward.
Because we're so far out, 6 weeks in advance, I would look through to determine which items would need to be pushed or moved or modified. It's a simple fix.
Okay. So you've heard from the superintendent, you've heard from a board member. I think I'm going to call for a motion for approval to advertise. And before I do that, would you like to make a motion then to vote on an additional meeting?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. Thank you. Let me just get my dates here.
Madam Chair, might
I don't have my calendar in front of me, so I don't know. And also, are you available, Bruce?
I believe the 19th, the TEC is used by the Elections Office, if I'm not mistaken, for setup, so we might want to check on that specific date. If my recollection is correct.
All right.
We can meet.
I'm just saying that this particular room might be
That's fine.
leveraged by the election office.
And I think this is what my holdup is. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the 19th, but it could be any time that
Right.
week. I just think giving a week prior to the 26th would help the process, rather than, squeeze everything within 2 weeks.
But you also heard the superintendent
Yeah.
and his team say that wouldn't help them, that September, closer to September 9th would help them.
But it doesn't help us. And individual meetings, here's the thing, individual meetings with Bruce, with Mr. Green in this process, it's great, and we do have those. And, I mean, apart from Mr. McDonald just joining, I just assume that everybody is doing that anyway. That's not the issue. Having individual meetings to ask questions is not the concern. It's that nothing can be changed or added unless we are collectively meeting to discuss these issues. It doesn't matter whether I have priorities. At this point, this budget is now going to become public. As it is a public document, board members cannot go to Dr. Moore and say, I want my priority to be that we build playgrounds in every single school. That does not make a difference. Telling him that will not change. It is the majority of the board who then votes at that point to set the priorities moving forward. So having individual meetings telling him our priorities doesn't matter at this point.
I don't
because
think you
this is
listened to me when I
tentatively-
was speaking about individual meetings, because what I said is,
Yeah, I heard
ask
you.
your questions and then
I
write
heard-
down all the items that you would like as
And bring it
priorities,
back.
and
I
then
heard
bring
you.
them to the August
Yes,
26th
I
budget
heard you.
workshop.
I heard you. That's not what my point was. My point was that having individual meetings is great, but having very sparse time before the actual budget does not put the board as priority in the process of approving the budget. The budget is the board's budget, not the superintendent's budget. He has to make the effort to include the board in a budget workshop, at least one. We should have several. We should have had several since January, to at least fill us in on the process. Whether the final budget is approved or not is not the issue, but the process, there's a lot of things in here that we could discuss with or without the final. We're now approving a tentative budget. The numbers came from somewhere. So the process for us to just begin those and have a standalone on on August 26th, I think is just too far. It's too far. So
So-
my motion, I'd like to make a motion.
Hold on a second, because I do want to correct one thing you just said. We are not approving a tentative budget tonight. We are
No, I
proposing.
didn't say that.
You did.
We are
We are
approving
proposing a tentative budget millage rate to advertise.
to advertise, yes.
Okay.
But it's still public. It's still now made public. So tentative or not, we haven't been a part of the process. So I'd like to make a motion for a standalone budget workshop anytime during the week of August 19th. I saw Dr. Moore do this, so that might be possible. It doesn't necessarily have to be on that Monday. I'm just saying before the 26th. That's just, and if a board member is not available in person, they can meet, virtually. Just a standalone.
Okay, can I get a second for her motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Dr. Posca? We did not hear your vote.
I couldn't hear the proposal.
I don't know if you can hear me, Dr. Posca, but the motion was a standalone budget workshop anytime during the week of August 19th. And if any
I'm
board,
going to vote nay. I'm going to vote nay, but I'd like to respond too.
Okay, so the motion does
Can I
not
make a
pass 2 to
comment?
3. Okay, you wanted to respond? Go ahead.
Yeah, just because there's been a lot of back and forth. You know what I think the best thing to do is we're going to meet next Monday. We're going to have some extensive discussions, and then I think we should also continue this discussion on when and where to schedule potentially another workshop. Because we're going to get together on Monday, right?
Right, correct.
So I think we should table the discussion and pick it back up then.
Well, we already voted it down, so we don't table it, but you can bring it back up. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can bring it back up on Monday.
Precisely.
Okay. All right, so I'm now going to call for a motion for approval to advertise the 2024-2025 proposed tentative budget and millage rates for the express purpose of advertising the budget in accordance with the truth and millage requirements. May I get a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Second.
Dr. Jones and Mr. McDonald. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, it passes 5-0. And Dr. Moore, we now have action agenda item 3B.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just to close out that, when we approve this budget, every board member will be heard, and every board member will have the opportunity to provide feedback, and when you give a positive vote, it will reflect the hard work and evaluation that you have put into this budget. So we will get this done, and everyone will be satisfied with the volume of conversation that we have, and that's a commitment I make to each and every single board member.
Thank you.
This item is a good cause item. The board, each board member, every single board member, challenged me to look at the extended day fees that we approved earlier in the past school year. I presented information and updated a reduction in fees, and pretty much every board member said, can we do better? Understanding the intent of extended day is to provide supervision for children while parents are at work. We did increase prices to provide the highest level of service humanly possible, which included additional services, which included interventions, and included a preparation for shifts in the time of schedule, as well as additional cost based on inflation. Mr. Seymour, Mr. Green, and myself really challenged a scrub of the entire budget to determine how we can reduce the impact to our community. So I am going to pass out a form based on the challenge you all provided me with yesterday, and encourage the board to modify the item to approve additional reductions based on what I presented to you yesterday and posted yesterday. And I will thoroughly go over it for Dr. Posca, who's not here, but you just take one and pass
Is there a
it
way
down.
to send it to him?
Take a screenshot.
Oh, you're so smart. Insert public records request for screenshot.
Here, this is extra.
Okay, I will present the item and then humbly ask the board to make a amendment to approve the schedule as it's being presented now. So I'll go over the changes. The registration fee was $32. Now will continue to be $32 just for the first child. Any additional child would be $16 for each additional child, which is a significant reduction for those families who have multiple children. We were able to reduce I'm speaking specifically not for employees, general public. We were able to reduce the cost from $35 for 2 children for 2 to 5 days, or 1 child for 2 to 5 days, down to $25. What was posted was $35. So that is a additional reduction. That would be a cost of $5 more than what they paid per week last year. So it's only going up. It was $25 initially. We got it down to $35. Now it is $25. The afternoon, that was before school care, which is about 1 hour and 20 minutes. The after-school program, which goes from dismissal at 3:30 to 6, the 1 day a week charge is now $10. That's no change from what it was in the previous school year. And then the 2 to 5 days will go down to 40. I'm sorry, am I looking at we'll go down to $40. And then for the employees, we updated that as well. The employees would go from the $20 a week down to $15, which is a $5 increase from the previous year. And then the after-school portion would go from 40 to 30, which is a $10 increase from the previous year. So this is minimal change in terms of what we had in place last school year. It is a response to you all listening to your constituents and a challenge that you proposed to me to really provide, not to price ourselves out of the market. And at the end of the day, I respect and think what we were attempting to do, which is to provide the highest level of service, but not at the cost of not allowing families to participate. And at the end of the day, this is still the most affordable option in town, as well as being the most convenient option in town, because you don't have to get on a bus, you don't have to be transported anywhere. So thank you, board, for the challenge, and I hope this lives up to it. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion? Mr. Rosario?
Dr. Moore, this is definitely better, for sure. $100 a week for a family of 4 children, even 3 children is a lot of money. I do understand the situation. I get that this is outside of our official work hours or work responsibilities. I have a question, though, regarding the registration fee. And I'd like something very detailed. What exactly does that fee cover? And who is responsible for doing that work?
So there's a platform that we use. It is the collecting of information. It is the dissemination of the resources that we have. So there is a front loading of time and responsibilities that we use. And we use those resources in order to make sure we have everything ultimately that we need. So it's just not, oh, let's charge them for that. There is a significant amount of work that takes place. during the summer hours to prepare. So staff will come in and do some of that work and prepare, and we use some of those resources through the registration fee to offset those costs.
So staff is actually doing that?
Yes, this
So
is
current staff, not new staff?
hourly staff, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it's staff that we have already on here doing work, and this is given to them as a responsibility?
In addition to hourly as well, to prep for to receive the children when they come, either before school or after school.
And what is the platform?
Procase? Procare?
ProCare.
ProCare is a platform that is used to register students in the in the morning.
In the morning after, it's where they pay the registration fee, and it's the communication device as well as the going online and paying.
And why do we use ProCare? Why that platform? Why not use one of the platforms that we currently have?
So we don't have
Like,
it's independent, so there's a mixing of dollars that we can't do. So if I buy that system as an example, they're exploring taking credit card payments for lunch or things like that. That would be purchased through tax dollars or food service dollars. This is an after-school business itself, so the dollars can't be mingled.
okay, so we had, based on this current tentative budget book, it looks like our total revenue last year was 3.5 million-ish. I'm on page 96 of 380. First of all, how much is ProCare? What is the minimum for the cost of ProCare? Does anyone know?
We can get that cost.
Yeah, I see a quote here. I see a quote for $10,920.
$10,000
Yes.
for the use of, do we use ProCare for anything else?
Not
No.
within our school day, but.
So this is the only,
Before and after.
so this is the only system, it costs $10,000 to register before and after school care for just elementary school students?
I
And
can't
be
say if
able to
this is the
take,
only system, because I'm learning this too. My first year with this budget, but I don't know if it's the only system. No.
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I think we need to do some,
Through the chair, in terms of the convenience that it provides to the customers, which are the parents, versus having to send a check in with your son or
Yeah.
your daughter.
no, I don't disagree with that. I just think that we should do our due diligence and kind of go out there and see if there's anything else that provides the same service. There's a lot of online services where you can make payment on that might not cost $10,000 a year.
But it's also the grouping of children, the collecting of their information, making sure we have the emergency contact for this, that, and the other. It's a housing system of all of the information.
Well, I still think that we should
Which
look
is,
into it. But anyway,
could look.
that aside, that just seems like a lot of money for that. But anyway, so I guess that I digress, or maybe I don't. So I'm asking that because last year, it looks like our revenue was $3.5 million in the extended day program. And the proposed, and I don't see what would be proposed for this school year. I'm sorry, yes. So on page 96, Mr. Green, the total revenue there was for last year, correct?
Through the chair, page 96 is your appropriations
Right.
for your budget for the 24-25 school year, which also includes your fund balances. It's not your prior year budget.
So this is the expected revenue. Okay,
These are the,
so I think that's expected revenue. So we are expecting a revenue of 3.5 million 24-25 school year.
so the 3.5 at the bottom is your total budget. Your revenue would be at the top.
Yes, that's what I'm looking at, the revenue. 97, look at page 97.
Page 97 will have a comparison of prior year to this year.
Okay, that's what okay. So, okay, so last year, the total estimated revenue was 3 million-ish. I'm sorry, 2.4 million for 23-24. That's the actual. Am I reading that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, just want to make sure I'm reading it correct. The 3.4 million. The budget for this year is 3.5 million. That's a huge jump from one year to the next. So it's approximately another $1 million more that we are a little less. But
It's not a million.
that's a big jump, and I understand you're gonna say fees and a lot of, inflation and a lot of other things. So I'm wondering,
Well, just for clarity, you're talking about the budget. So on the
Correct.
previous page, that new budget includes a fund balance, an expected ended fund balance of $825,000.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So the $3.5 million budget that you're speaking about
Right.
includes an estimated ending fund balance of $825,000.
Right?
That's,
That's what's left over from last year. That's what's expected to be left over 24-25, because this is tentative 24-25.
right. And your fund balance from this year rolls forward into your budget, is my point. It's not all new revenue from fees.
Right.
And as we spoke
And
about.
that was 195,000. Balance at the end of June 30th was 195,000.
No, actually,
Right here.
that one,
Balance at the end of the year, 195.
budget, yeah.
Well, so that was your final budget in September, which is really your beginning of year budget. That's at the beginning of year in September, and then your actual was 604,574.
Okay, so maybe I should just ask this. What was the final that was rolled over from last year to this year?
604.
604?
Yeah. And
Okay.
we still have 1 month of, that's tentatively, yes, so 604,000.
Okay, so we have 604,000 that's rolling over from last year to this year. Okay, I get everybody's, okay, I'm
Right.
just trying. So if we have $604,000, let's pay for the $10,000 out of that.
So, and that's where we have the discussion around the.
I'm sorry, and let me finish my thought, and let there be no registration fee.
So in August, we will receive the OPEB liabilities for this enterprise fund, other future benefits, health subsidy insurances, pension. Last year, those OPEB liabilities were just over $600,000. And so those get set aside out of the fund balance to pay future liabilities for the employees that work in the program that get future benefits. We had a worker retire. She had leave and things built up, future liabilities. So we don't know what that number is. Last year, it was over $600,000. So that will get set aside out of that fund balance once we know that number in August.
So the year before, there was a fund balance of 224,000. Last year, the fund balance the balance, that's what I meant to say, not the fund balance, the balance was 604. And then next year, you're expecting the balance at the end of the year to be 800,000. These are big differences in funding, and so if we could cover the registration fee, I would like us to be able to do that.
So, through the chair, we will cover the registration with the fees generated from that program. The $600,000 fund balance is in anticipation for what will be, or was, a $600,000 bill that we get in October while we're in the midst of collecting it. So it is creating a budget that allows us to cover all expenses.
So basically, what I hear you say is we're covering the registration fee, so registration fee will be free.
No, registration fee is in that budget that we've already drastically reduced the budget, so it has to come back. So we have to spend less to cover the reduction in what we're going to collect. The registration fee is critical, and it does help offset the preparation for the opening of schools, the cost of that particular program, preparing to greet the kids, and the absorption of the fee that is a known unknown, meaning we know last year it was $600,000. So if it's the same cost as last year, fund balance is zero. We don't have it. It's gone. And then you build up the fund balance for the upcoming school year for another 6 to 7, depending on what it would be. So the fund balance is to offset a cost that would be coming into the system 2 months into the financial year. So it's just smart management, but it is an independent fund that runs solely on the what we generate from these fees that you're now approving.
Well, that's why I was just suggesting when I said how much is ProCare, because we already have staff who's already doing that work. Now we're just looking to pay for the $10,000 of what we use in ProCare. But my other suggestion, if that doesn't work, and then I'll let board members chime in here, I'm just looking for other ways to help families in these times. It is extremely expensive to raise a family nowadays. And then on top of working families, especially a single mom, you know, who has multiple children, it is incredibly hard for them to be able to manage work. And I understand this is not part of our state and federal funding, but it still nonetheless is very important for me. And as a board, I'd like us to have that conversation. The other suggestion that I have is reduce the $32 registration fee to $25 for parents and families, and make it free for employees. They are our employees.
My concern in the last 6 days or 5 days that we've done this is we were meeting your exact intent, and as well as the other board members. See, how low can we get this to continue to allow families to have access to it? And what you are doing is drastic in terms of what you initially approved to what you're doing. You are championing your community in approving this.
You know, Dr. Moore, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I went to the dollar store yesterday. I'm sorry, on Sunday with my son. And there was a lady right in front of us. I'm going to wind up crying. There was a lady right in front of us, 3 children. She was there for a long time. I don't know what she was doing. She was fumbling through her purse. And I saw her put back a bottle of laundry detergent, and then I saw the cashier recalculate. And then I saw her put back a water bottle because she was short $1.48. And she couldn't get any more change out of the bottom of her purse. And I couldn't take it. I couldn't stand there and allow her to put laundry detergent back. I paid for her entire cart. It was heartbreaking. That woman would not be able to cover this fee for every one of her children. She couldn't even afford a water bottle. Now, I know this is not our state and federal responsibility. I get it. But you take care of the least of these, and you put those first. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that the board members we have a good fund balance. Is there any way, Mr. Green, that we can cover or make any more changes for families anywhere?
Yeah, totally understand. Just to be clear on the budget that's provided to you, this was a tentative budget that we put together. We made some early reductions in anticipation, but we have not yet made the reductions that are on this paper to that budget. So when we go back and apply these fees, which really are not going up at all much, you'll have a drastically reduced budget to begin with. And my concern is I'm not sure you'll be able to pay the hourly workers, which by law have had some incremental, same thing, we've had to try to get them up towards the $15. There's a salary for those, on the other side of that, there's a living wage debate to be had for the people working the program. So it's a balance, but I can assure you, we've not reduced the budget to this level yet. So I would not, you do not have a 600, I mean, that is going to eat that fund balance up quickly when I reduce the revenues coming in. And that's why it's a tentative, we have time, but I would have to run those numbers to see what the result would be.
And I just want to add, just because it's relevant, Mr. Seymour, if you could just pass out your business cards to all of the board members, so when you're in that situation, Mr. Seymour could reach out. So My Kid can cover those expenses. You know, the creation of the advocacy office, that is Mr. Seymour's primary role, to make sure we are in service of all of our students, those who have and those who are in need. And we are in constant communication with our schools. I don't know, Mr. Seymour, if you want to add to the work that you do, whether it's My Kid Can, just to make sure children don't go without in this county. And advocacy is a unique position to our system.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. First, we got to say that there are some astronomical fees that I was not aware of, and I know that the parents really want a bona fide program that's going to offer, you know, their children the best opportunity for growth. In addition to that, we are looking at more of a qualified staff to manage the students, and it was a lot of concerns about students being involved in actually running some of the programs. But on the other hand, we have quite a few certified teachers that are now interested in being a part of this process. In addition to that, for those that do have struggled financially, we have the Early Learning Coalition who provides support. And there's a high percentage of those individuals who could not pay these fees, paid a minimal fee to be a part of the program. I have a family member that was paying a lot less than what was stated on the fee structure, in the fee structure. But then too, I receive phone calls, of course. I'm connected, I feel that I am, to the entire county. And last year, I can only say that there were maybe 4 instances where I received phone calls from parents or concerns about the program, extended day program, and most of those were isolated incidents that might have occurred due to us being short of staff. Also, I must say too that we continue to work and increase the number of students participating in all activities, because we know what it does for our students. And we have every bit of disaggregated data that shows the performance of those individuals being in those programs is measurable, accountable, and is beneficial to the families. I would like to be able to put the stats on paper next year, but these students do not roll over. So where the principals may have a projection, Dr. Long does not have a projection, but we can go based on the number of students that were averaged to be in the program last year. So the estimate right now is about 2,100 students. So it's a pretty big program, but then too, I think things will be a lot better as far as us documenting, planning, and working with our budget through Mr. Green next year going forward.
And I think the assurance to Ms. Rosario and the board is we are very strategic. I see Mr. Hart just ran in the room. I'm sure he was watching in his office, to work with our principals to find a way to get opportunity to children. And some of that work, maybe we should highlight a bit better, but it is magical. And it will pull at your heartstrings when Mr. Seymour gets a call and says, hey, we need this for this particular student. We're going to make it happen. So as we see those situations, our principals, our assistant principals, school support staff, counselors know we have a structure in place, and service for us is a non-negotiable, and it is one of the key things we need to continue to focus in on to sustain and grow public education in Indian River County.
I
Okay,
don't
so-
doubt it, Dr. Moore. I don't doubt that we're not doing great work. And that, we're, more than 2,000 students a part of, before and after school care. It speaks a lot to the needs of the community.
Thank you.
Because that's a lot of kids, right? But, I guess my point is, I would love for us to have more be a part of it, because there is a connection between being there and their academic achievement, clearly. I just wish that, it just breaks my heart that there are families that are struggling. And this is an area that I think our local 501c3s should be standing up and should be donating to this particular need, right? I think that that's an area that our foundation, when we raise money, our foundation should be covering half, if not all, and at least all for our employees who are working after school, who are working during the day and also have children. It's just, maybe it's a gap, maybe it's just, clearly there is a link to academic achievement. I think I'll just be quiet after this, but I'm glad that you all are hearing. I'm glad that you all are listening. I'm glad, Dr. Moore, that you are recommending a reduction to what was posted last week, or however long it was, and that at least this is definitely $65 a week is much better than $100 a week. But still, my hope and my prayer is that we can take it a bit further.
Okay, Dr. Jones.
First of all, thank you to Dr. Moore and Mr. Green for adjusting these fees and listening to us. Thank you to Dr. Long and her team. I've been in several before and after school programs, and they do a great job keeping our students safe and having some academic fun. Mr. Green, I started questioning this when I was first on the board. Our fund balance used to be around $1 million, and you made something about the OPEG and how it will come about. So can you explain a little bit more about what that could be as far as taking money from this enterprise fund and even doing any type of projection?
So, yeah, and I'll just go back to that page 97 where we were looking at the final budget. So the two purple columns were comparing your final budget last September to this new tentative budget.
Right.
And it was the 195 fund balance and now 825 projected fund balance. And in the middle of the year, with increased costs, we saw that fund balance was going to go very low. And we made some course corrections through expenditures. And Dr. Long takes the credit for that. And through that was able to get back and recoup a $600,000 fund balance, which is there for the, just as you have a fund balance, for the unexpected things needed to operate. Dr. Long cannot get any, she only has revenue and expenditures. That's the only things you can control. Reduce your expenditures or increase your revenue. So by having that fund balance in August, when we find out the future liabilities, which are calculations, numbers given to us, and then staff spend hours calculating it through templates and formulas that we have, we will provide that information to the fund, the enterprise fund, and it could be 400,000, it could be 600,000. There's been years way past when it was a very low number, a very high number. We don't know, but last year's number was $600,000. So that would be pulled out of that fund balance and set aside on the ledger as a reserve for the future liability of those pensions and benefits and health insurance subsidies that those employees will garner upon retirement or resignation.
Thank you. And just one final comment. Thank you, Mr. Seymour. I've sat in on a couple of the My Kid Can meetings, and what we do for our students in any area in helping our parents, I think could be very beneficial here. As far as the registration fee, I've talked about that for a couple of years. And I know you haven't done all of the accounting yet with this reduction, but maybe, we could take a look at that one because, as anyone will say, our population here in Indian River County is, 51% poverty in Alice population, so it's a struggle. Thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I thank you as well, Mr. Green and Dr. Moore and the staff for working on this and hearing the concerns that we've heard from people in the community about this significant increase. And I'm glad to see us be able to roll that back to some degree. I understand that we made adjustments to the staffing such that we can have staff whose wages were a little bit lower to accommodate this reduction in costs. And I think it's beneficial. I do hear Ms. Rosario's concern about those family members who would be hardest hit by these numbers. And it sounds like you said that the Early Learning Coalition is in place to cover those particular instances.
To give support
To give support for those who might not be able to
financially.
participate with this, and I think that's a good thing. There are some families that it always hurts to take our wallet out, but there are some who it hurts a whole lot more than others, and those are the ones we of course want to be most sensitive to. And I'm wondering, Mr. Green, if we should not have a specific accounting line item as a reserve for OPEB, because listing this as a balance may not be representative of the actual financial situation of these funds. They're actually, it seems, they're reserve funds which will be used in the upcoming months against those obligations. Would that be a better way to address this in the budget?
So the OPEB, it is complicated because it's more on the general ledger than in the budget accounting. And I don't want anyone to think that the fund balance is solely for the OPEB, but it will get removed from that as the source to pay for it. So I think just having the conversations and people having a deeper understanding of why a fund might have a fund balance, and it's not, a slush fund, that it's for unexpected things, future liabilities, when expenses go up throughout the year. But from an accounting standpoint, I'll definitely work with staff, but I'm not sure there's a good way to represent that as a line item budgeted versus a general ledger after it comes in as a liability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it does seem that we in essence, we are planning for a reserve for that. Not apparently not all these funds, probably the majority of the funds are planned for that. So it would make sense to have a specific reserve, reflect that as a reserve, and then if we have a balance of another $50,000 or $100,000 for other unknown costs, that would probably more clearly identify upfront what those funds are for, and on the back end, clearly identify where those funds went to, what was unexpected and what was actually just reserved and planned for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Posca.
Thank you. So, I listened to the discussion, and I think I'll get right to my recommendation is I think we should pass the amended item. I think it achieves a lot of, there's some feedback here. I think the amended item achieves a lot of what was being discussed in that we are significantly improving the cost for our families and children. But I think, you know, we have to consider objectively, this is really a taxpayer-funded and subsidized daycare program. If we keep lowering the costs and covering it through taxpayer funds. So we have to be cognizant of that. I am also, you know, I sincerely, if there are people that can't afford it, after passing this, I think it would be reasonable to look at a feasibility program where you could identify people that are severely economically disenfranchised, where they can prove it using bank statements and W-2s, and we offer them assistance, preferably not from our fund balance, but preferably from donation sources and other avenues of financing. But I think for today, I think we should pass the amended item.
Okay, but before we go further, I have a couple questions. One, this fund is totally separate. The taxpayers don't pay this fund, correct? It's paid by the parents putting in that are using the before and after school program, and that's what makes the fund balance, correct?
That's correct. That's why it's
Correct. Okay,
identified
so the
as an
taxpayers aren't floating this. Okay, I want that very clear. Because I agree, it should be paid for just by the people using it, because when you're looking at other items in the budget, you can't have the taxpayers or the students even pay for something for some students. It must be paid for all students. And so that would be a some versus all. So I wanted to make sure that that was very clear. The ProCare, did that go out to bid?
That was before. I don't know the history of ProCare, but
Okay, could you look into that and see if
I sure
that's
will.
something that goes out to bid and whether or not we are looking at that and it comes before the board for a vote for ProCare? And also, is it billed, you said it's $10,000, so is it a flat fee or is it per child? Because if you get a child that comes in after the registration, at the beginning of the year, you get a bunch of money for registration, but then if you get a student that comes in November and adds, that's extra money for registration. So I was just curious if it's per child or a flat fee, because that would matter in how much money you're taking in and how much you're budgeting for that. And I think that we need to be very transparent about that.
yes.
Okay? Because, and I also think, I have a question. Do all of the after-school program coordinators know about if a parent can't afford this and they know that a parent needs to have help, how to carefully and quietly give them advice on where to go?
If I understand the question correctly, I think it's included in the application process.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Maybe it would be nice for board members to get that application sent to us so we see it. Then we can help parents that come to us or we see at the dollar store that need those helps, that we can say, hey, when you sign up for after school, before school, don't think that you can't afford it. They might not even try to sign up because they think they can't even
Right.
afford it.
Exactly.
So if we have that information, that would help board members too.
Okay.
All right. So with this good cause item, it is an action agenda item, not an amended item. It's action agenda item 3B. So I'd like to call for a motion for approval for this good cause item, reduction of extended day fees.
So move?
Dr. Jones? Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. McDonald? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, passes 5-0. Thank you to your team for helping when someone reaches out to board members and we, again, contact the superintendent. That's our job. Our job is to say a taxpayer's concerned or a parent's concerned about something, and we contact the superintendent. Superintendent gets on it. But I want to say thank you for getting on this so quickly. You know, sometimes we bring up an item that we have a concern about or a parent has concern about, and it takes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for a while. This one went very quickly. I appreciate it because I know that that's going to help out some parents, so we appreciate that. Okay, with that, we don't have any discussion items, so I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 12:39.